Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our third webinar. So this is our third webinar in the series, and I can't believe it's the third one already. About a year ago, we decided to have this energy webinar series, and today's actually our biggest attended. So it's just so good to see how the people that have joined are getting some interest from it. They are coming back at the end of these webinars with questions. At the end of it, they come reach out to me and say, it's so amazing how I didn't think of this or that, or there's something they hadn't even considered within their organization, and they're taking it back within their company and using it as discussion points and it's all bits of information gained from these webinars. So it's really good to see. At the end of this webinar, so we are recording this, and at the end of this webinar, we will be sending our recording to everybody. So if you want to send it to a colleague or someone who's on annual leave and just who hasn't been able to attend, please feel free to send it across. We also have a Q&A function, so if whilst Mick is talking, you have any questions that you have, you can pop it in there, and then I will read out the questions at the end, and then Mick will get to them. So please feel free to use that as much as possible. So the general theme of today's webinar is automation. We're going to discuss how to utilize automated processes to improve security as well as reducing the risk. There are four main topics that Mick's going to discuss. The first one being using automation for planned preventative maintenance. We can also discuss how to use automated workflows to protect your valuable sites and alert staff if there's been a potential breach on the site. Reducing the slow process of compliance reporting. So that's got to deal with things like every month having to do compliance reporting, the slow process of it, how that takes weeks at a time to do, and it's pretty boring to do. So a nice automated process to make it better. And lastly, we're gonna discuss how we have supported operators in securing a wide variety of their sites. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now, so I'm going to hand over to Mick. For those of you who don't know, Mick is one of Bedroq's technical architects. So off to you, Mick.
Thank you very much, Dylan. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about automation today. And I'm going to start off by asking, why would we use automation? Why would we allow things to be taken control of machines or automated processes? So some of those things are, it's easier to give visibility to complex issues, in the fact that sometimes there can be lots of information. How do you either look at those cohesively? How do you look at them at the same time or overlay those to be able to give that visibility to what can often be a complicated or a complex problem? Automated systems can produce the same results without errors because there's no human factors. Automation can also free up resources and time because they are able to just, in the background, do what they're designed to do time after time and give you the ability to do other things and be more effective. Faults can be found and rectified quicker if you've got systems in place that continually monitor either systems or whatever that is, CCTV. Then you've got the ability to be able to find the problem quicker, potentially without going onto a site, to be able to find out what the problem is, or be more effective in knowing what the problem is before you go to site. And therefore it allows also a more proactive approach to the management and support of the systems that you've got. So in terms of proactiveness, PPM is one of those, or planned preventative maintenance. And I know that for a lot of people and a lot of you guys, you have these programmed into your sites anyway, in a lot of cases. And it's a proactive way of ensuring that your systems are functioning as they're originally designed. And certainly in terms of electronic security, there can be activities such as checking systems, checking your cameras, and IDS system checks, so burglar alarms, for lack of a better word, conducting pen tests, so security penetration testing. And it can also be the proactive replacement of parts, batteries and UPSs and alarm systems, and things like that. So yeah, and in terms of automating a PPM, it can ensure that equipment can be checked all year round. So we're not just going on a single site visit and then realizing there's equipment or things that need replacing, or there's problems at that point. So how do you know a switch room is getting too hot unless someone goes there? So implementing automation in terms of having temperature sensors and alerting into your systems mean that you would know that before you went there and could be proactive in dealing with that before all of your equipment overheats and causes obviously a lot of outages. And it can speed up both the PPMs as well by being able to remotely check and also be able to prioritize your PPM. So rather than going and starting from the beginning of, say, a schedule and working your way through that schedule regardless to find out there's a massive problem with a piece of system or equipment at the end of that PPM, you can be proactive and say, okay, we understand we've got to prioritize maybe a certain cameras or certain systems and prioritize those in your PPM to make them more effective when you are there. And that's certainly something that can be employed really well. And again, monitoring batteries. That means that that if a battery is due to be changed, say after 2 years, you can monitor a battery and go, actually, that's still performing well. We'll continue to monitor that. We won't replace it at year 2. Various reasons. Everyone's thinking about the environment and things like that alongside cost, and therefore, we don't have to have another battery, pay for it, and obviously the environmental impact of another battery, we can wait until year 3, and therefore, using the evidence of the information captured, we know whether or not we can change that battery at year 2, or we can leave that to year 3 and have that information logged as well. Using tools and templates for PPM that are created mean that you can automate that slightly better, and also mean that the kind of things that are checked and the auditing process around the things being checked and tested are a lot more clear. Staff on site are able to follow those schedules. And for example, we use a system called iAuditor. I don't know if anyone has any use of that or knows of anything similar, but it's an automated system. We can put together reports that are templated for certain types of testing and PPM that we provide. And the engineers on site can use a tablet or a phone or some other thing where they can input that information, and it ensures that they put in that information using tick boxes and all sorts of things to ensure that they answer the questions, take photographs, and it's all in there, and therefore automates and produces that report at the end for that site. So it's a great way of using tools that we can use to obtain the information quicker and generate reports for us automatically. And that's a really useful thing to be able to do as well. So looking at automating workflows. So I'm going to look at two different scenarios, really, obviously, with some clients that we kind of work with in terms of electronic security and also in terms of secure IT and networking. So in terms of site security, some of the challenges, they require constant monitoring, often with overwhelming numbers of feeds, especially as people go more towards a central operations center as opposed to isolated sites with their own CCTV and their own security staff and those sorts of things. So there's an overwhelming number of feeds coming from different buildings, and obviously they all look the same, don't they? They're all the same pictures of pipes and tubes and various other things, so keeping on top of which is which. Often staff who are attending sites, the workflow is phone in the operations center. They will manually, even from a remote aspect, open gates for them. In control of access and control of keys. It's a case of sometimes keys are kept somewhere else. People have to travel to other places to pick up keys first. So where are they kept? How are they accessed? Who has access to them? Who had them last? I don't know how many people have been to a site and the key that gets them into a room isn't there, and an engineer has accidentally gone off site with that key. So lots of things we can do in that aspect. And some of that is just making, looking at the types of products that people are using. Can we integrate those with each other? And some of those examples of that, of how we can integrate CCTV is the first and foremost, and often the central component of that. It's the most visual. It's the thing that's in front of the operations people. And integrating our access control. That's one of a very big standard now that's pretty day-to-day for a lot of these types of products. But also integrating IDS or security or alarm, fence line systems, those types of things. So in the scenario here, we've got a site, it's protected by CCTV, obviously using modern analytics. So if people are jumping fences and things like that, then you can see that that's a person and let the operators know. Incorporating fence line protection and our IDS burglar alarm systems and things like that as well. So we've got a fully protected site. So what can happen is if anybody, jumps the fence or anybody tries to break in, sets off either the analytics or the burglar alarm systems or any of those types of things, then that can alert those operations and security centers to any intrusion. And from there, their workflow can mean that they can do quite a few things. Some could be automated. So they could give audio feedback to the site, either manually by speaking down some speakers, comes out onto the site, telling the people to leave the site. It can be automated. So if it's an isolated site with no people around, then it may be that there's an automated message plays out the speakers to say that the people have been seen and that they should leave the site. Alarms could be raised. We do have some systems that are approved for IMIX, so a lot of ARC systems and remote monitoring, third-party remote monitoring, now can take inputs from CCTV analytics, so they will automatically raise the alarm with the ARC, and then they can look at that, quickly check it, and obviously then they can call the authorities. And in the same token, obviously the operations centre guys from yourselves, they could also call the authorities if they want to, or call the police or whatever. So there's lots of ways we can have integration of the different systems. Some of them you may already have, if someone's already got Honeywell Galaxy, for example, really popular burglar alarm IDS system. You can integrate that with various things, and therefore you don't necessarily have to be swapping out all your systems. It's just a case of being able to integrate them to make better use of them and automate them a little bit. So if you do have visitors, how do we control that in this scenario? We can use visitor management that bolts on top of these packages, and we can look at things like dual authentication. So it may be that you've already got cards, maybe you've already got PIN codes. There are some now that we're just looking at with people where we can introduce a QR code. So you've got a visitor, all you need is an email address. You can pop that in. It will send them a QR code. You set where they can get to, along with a PIN code that might go via text message, for example. And all that person needs to do is get to site, show their phone to the camera or the little QR reader. And then what that can do, that can automatically turn off the analytics, turn off the fence line protection, turn off the IDS systems, for example, if that's the right thing to do, and give them access to the site. The gate opens and lets them in. From there, their access rights mean they can access rooms or buildings or get themselves to a key safe, again, with integration, which means that when they access that key safe and open it, it'll only allow them to the keys that are allowed. So all of that is done automatically right from the beginning of just putting a person in the system with the QR code and then just setting some access as to what they can get access to. And all of the rest is automated thereof. And at the end of all of that, obviously, we still need to make sure that people know that everything's going on and that people are alerted. And therefore, a message can be sent to the operations centre, alerting them to that visitor and saying that person has arrived on site and everything's okay. Obviously, from there, when the visitor is ready to leave, they would return all their keys. There is some automation that means that if they didn't return the keys and they try to scan back out of the site, it won't let them, and a little message pops up on the speakers saying you need to return your keys, so people don't walk off with keys. But the reverse is thereof. They will come out of the building, and then when they get to the gate, they will scan their pass or their QR code. Gate will open, allow them to leave, and then it sets the CCTV analytics, fence line, and again alerts the operations centre that that person's left and that the analytics and the IDS and security systems are back online. So that's just some ways in terms of security systems that we can, and you guys can have a look at how you can automate some things and remove a lot of manual intervention and processes that could take up a lot of operators' time, especially when the operators can often be doing other things rather than just looking after security systems. You know, they're there looking at all of the SCADA and the other things, and you know, looking at all of the other aspects that control the either your substation or your generation site or wherever that is. So moving on to more of a system management aspect, you know, looking at some of the key requirements, they tend to be required 24/7. I'm sure if anyone has to plan maintenance or plan, especially in a secure network environment, as more of your SCADA systems and such things move on to networks, planning system upgrades and things like that become extremely difficult. This thing has to work 24/7. So what can we do in terms of automating things and allowing systems to be online for longer, that would potentially allow any issues to be temporarily bypassed, such as if any WAN connectivity or internet connectivity would drop, could another one automatically resume its place and notify staff that the internet's gone off. We've covered that in another webinar regarding SD-WAN and things like that. If no one's seen that, check it out. If you need access to it, just reach out to Dylan. He'll give you a link to go and watch that, and you can look at more of the techie detail of how you guys can do that with more of your WAN and internet connectivity. And in certain scenarios, certain systems can self-heal, returning back more to a normal state by itself. So in the case of that, your network connection or your internet, once it comes back online, the system can check for stability and then basically move it back. So if your backup connectivity is, say, a SIM card or a satellite link, you want to be off that system as soon as it's feasible and the system's back working again. And therefore it can do that. So yeah, again, moving more on to into how you can monitor that. One of the biggest things, and I've probably mentioned it numerous times before, is around system management, either creating a NOC or a SOC, so network operations and security operations if it's in cyber. Really, that works and it's important as a security kind of, you know, lots of people are used to having a security center with cameras and systems and things like that, but actually monitoring the network is as important and allows you to really be very quick in trying to ascertain where the problems are, and for these things to be automatically going, getting the information, pulling it back, and allowing you to make decisions quicker. And this is an example I like to use. It's slightly less IT around collecting data. So for example, UPS has got a temperature probe attached and monitors the cabinet. That probe is pulled by the management system and it can display information either in a chart, so we can see if there's a problem with the aircon, for example. And also we can send text messages for that, which we do for some people. It's quite straightforward to do. You just need a text messaging service that your monitoring system can send out to. And also things like runtime information, which allows us to monitor what the runtime of a UPS is, and therefore we can monitor that as well. But yeah, monitoring the networks, monitoring what's going on in that type of scenario as well. And obviously in terms of cyber, centrally collecting all of your logs and information so that so you've got it all in one place, so you're not necessarily going to an individual firewall or an individual system to be able to get information and to be able to make decisions or be able to check things. And in terms of reporting and compliance, we know that obviously in both the security environments and also in the IT environments, I'm sure lots of you have a lot of reporting and auditing that you do have to do, and we do certainly understand that that can be quite time consuming to pull together reports and pull information from various sources. And the time used to create those reports can be quite time consuming. If you have to go to even if you've got a system such as a network monitoring system, or even a CCTV or an electronic security system, going to these individual systems and manually pulling reports and manually taking information out of those systems can be quite time consuming, and therefore being able to automate that in terms of automated reports. So having the ability to automatically pull out reports such as this one here, which is a CCTV compliance report is this one. We do know that some people have to do that to be able to prove who was accessing CCTV in terms of accessing cameras, accessing, moving them around, things like exporting them and things like that. So we can automatically generate those and have them sent to inboxes once a month or whenever that is needed or required. And also hardware reporting as well in terms of cyber and internet and network security. Reports can be created automatically showing compliance. This particular example here is out of a firewall. This is logging into the firewall and it's automatically using things such as NIST compliance type stuff and also other things to be well-used practices to be able to pull together an audit against itself and what can be done in numerous ways. One of them is centrally in these guys' case. So for example, you might have that central. So it's pulling that information from all of your firewalls and either you can look at those individually or it can do some work in terms of looking at that and being able to give you a bit more information globally about your entire system. So for example, if one of them's seeing lots of things being blocked on your firewall and go, oh, actually, that's interesting. And then we see the same thing on another one. You can put 2 and 2 together and go, actually, it looks like somebody's trying to attack us. So we can do things like that. And that's a great way that you guys can kind of get more holistic views. There are in-house systems that you can use as well, such as Darktrace and various others that are third party and take information from firewalls like this that can pull that information together, and Cisco and various others and actually third party wise have a look at all that and bring all your logs together and help you with that as well. So yeah, this one is a Fortinet. They also have another one which is what they call their I always forget the acronym for it, unfortunately, but it basically they take all that information, they put that together into a report, and they will send that out either weekly, monthly, or otherwise, really. And then they can collate the whole lot together as a 360 as well. So that's really useful. So for those that have this stuff, it's quite useful to be able to access that and switch that on and utilize it, which is great. For those people that do have network management systems or those types of things, then automated reports can be sent out. I know this is the particular one that we send out to one of our customers every week. And this is actually for remote deployable cameras, but the principle is the same for anything really. So in this case, there's a bunch of cameras. These all work off 4 and 5G. And obviously because of that, obviously phone signals and all that kind of thing, they just want you to report every week of what the uptime looked like. So they've got the ability to see how much uptime they've got. This is monthly, actually, this one. So that is automatically generated by our system, and that is emailed to our customer. And if you guys have your own network management systems, it's certainly worthwhile having a look at that, see if you've got any way of automating the reports. Because yes, you could go in there manually and do that, but if it's emailing and sending you that once a month, then it certainly saves a lot of effort and time. So in terms of supporting, what will all that enable you to do? Hopefully allow you to do more in less time. If you're automating electronic security and therefore able to react to incidents quicker, then that's always a good thing. Automating resilience. So instead of having to manually bring up backup systems or having to react quickly to, say, network issues, if they are built in, having backup recorders, for example, and backup servers and things like that that automatically kick in and go back again, then that's going to save a lot of time and effort, and also allow you to have less downtime and therefore less time working on problems. And they are available 24/7, and also having resilient, certainly in terms of servers anyway, there's certain things you can do in terms of having a backup system brought into play while you do certain functions to your primary systems and then bring that back again. So we can help to keep things available for a lot longer and doing more with less resources. So if they're spending less time on these types of things, then they're available to do more important relevant work. So your ops guys are spending less time sitting there watching cameras, allowing people through manual gates and those type of things that can be spending more time actually operating your plant. And therefore, hopefully, achieving outcomes that would require huge amounts of resources to do otherwise. So that's kind of the upshot of automating the kind of things and systems that you've got. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, that would be great. Obviously, if anyone's got any particular any problems, anything that they find, actually, we spend a lot of time doing this thing, and it sounds like, you know, with the right tools and with the right kind of procedures and processes in place, we could actually automate that and have more auditing at the same time. So yeah, reach out to Dylan, reach out to myself. If anyone does have any questions now, that will be great.
Thanks for that, Mick. It was really, really good.
No problem.
So we actually do have some questions. So thanks to everyone who sent the questions through. So the first one is, what's the rough industry standards for PPM visits? Is it about 2 per year, 1 per year, maybe once every 6 months?
I think our we've got clients who do either annually or biannually, so we have both. It just depends on their requirements, to be honest. Obviously, in terms of our clients, vast majority of them all now are remote systems as well. So we are monitoring 24/7 in terms of our remote management. But yeah, in terms of actually on-site checking things and actually, you know, cleaning cameras or cleaning electronic systems or basically doing software updates or whatever it is to a schedule, it's either annual or biannual.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is, can we customize the automated workflows?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the key here is because integration, and I think I've talked about it before on one of the other webinars regarding, you know, standards in CCTV and access, you know, and access control is part of those same ONVIF standards now. And therefore integration of different products, including some you may already have, like I suggested with the IDS systems, mean that you can tweak them quite a lot. Like I said, I suggested that somebody could walk through a day and they could turn off the alarm and things like that. You know, there may be some reasons why you don't want that to be the case. You just want to open the gate, turn off the actual perimeter things, but actually you still want them to turn off the alarm in the building. And yes, so the upshot is yes, it's very, very configurable, and basically whatever people's requirements are, they can generally find a workflow to fit them. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Last question for today is, can you disable the QR code remotely for future access or set a time limit for a particular period? Maybe there's downtime on site, for example, and you need different people to come on. So can you disable the QR codes for a set time period, maybe an hour or a day? Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think the reason why a lot of people are looking at QR codes is, you know, a lot of security is based around the idea of something you have and something you know, and that's where the something you have would be, say, a plastic key card, and something you know would be say a pin code in your head. And therefore, you know, one of the difficulties is about the something you have, isn't it? And it's that plastic card, you know, issuing them out, keeping them, protecting them. Usually, how do you give one to a temporary or a third-party contractor? Those types of things, and that's where a lot of people have found QR codes useful. And the upshot of that is that even if someone turned up on the site from BT, for example, or from Grid, turned up on your site and needed access, and okay, we've checked to make sure they're okay and they're okay to be on site, we've checked all those things, and their passes and things. You could literally, as long as someone can get email on a phone, you could literally type in their email address into the system, say how long you want them to be, you know, 4 hours, whatever, and then they will get that email with that QR code and things like that. And yeah, it can be time limited. So after that 4 hours, it just simply stops working. Or you could just suspend them for amounts of time. So yeah.
That's really useful. Thanks, Mick. So that's all the questions we have. Thanks for hosting us today. It was really, really good. I hope everyone grabbed some valuable bits of information. And also, if you do have anything you'd like that you heard Mick speak about today, you want to discuss it in more detail, please either send myself or Mick an email, and then we can schedule a call to talk about that. And our next webinar is in November, and that we look forward to having you there.
Absolutely. And again, as always, if anyone does have any thoughts or ideas and say, actually, yeah, we've got this thing or this problem, and it'd be really cool if you could talk about that or do a webinar on it. Do reach out to us and let us know, because a lot of the things that we do talk about come from you guys. That is the whole, or one of the main reasons for us wanting to run these is to give some stuff back to you guys and give you some information wherever possible.
And Cara has posted a link to the next webinar, so we'll hopefully see you there.
Indeed. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.